Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming tonight and braving the traffic and the weather, the snow. I'm Peggy Farrell. I'm co-chair of the Rhode Island Business Competition, and we're really delighted to be able to host this workshop. Basically, discovering your best customer. We are thrilled to have Annette Tonti present and running the show tonight. I'm just up here as figurehead. For those who don't know, Annette is a serial entrepreneur and managing director of RIHub. She's been the founder of 3 high-tech startups and has raised over $30 million from venture and angel investors. Annette also serves on our advisory board at the competition and has brought a lot of energy and creative ideas, which have helped make the competition so successful. She will be joined by 𝐋𝐄𝐀𝐑𝐍, CEO and founder of 𝐿ouis, which provides the world's most luxurious portable restrooms, and Lindsay Kuhn, founder and CEO of Wingspan, a platform that uses storytelling to build a new and diverse workforce. Lindsay was also one of our finalists in last year's competition. So before we begin the program, I want to mention our sponsors. They include private companies, service organizations, public agencies, colleges and universities, banks, investors, and most importantly, former competitors in the competition. So the organizations provide us with ongoing support that enables us to run the competition and to run these workshops, and allows entrepreneurs in turn to transform their ideas into businesses. So we couldn't exist without them. Some of the competitions are actually university run or single sponsor. We are a community-based competition, and we have been now doing it since 2000, right? 2000. So, we have over 50 previous competitors that are making a huge impact on how we and they are growing and expanding their businesses, hiring employees, and service programs. And I also want to acknowledge one of our partners, which is Venture Cafe. They produce tonight's event, and also want to thank Brian, University's digital marketing team. They spread the word on our events, the competition, etc., through all our social media platforms, which including Instagram and X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So without one, move on up here.
Thank you. Thank you. This person and this person run the Rhode Island Business Competition with a couple others, and it's really fantastic. If you have not applied, please do. It's an awesome experience. How many of you in here have been to New York City? All right. Anybody go to New York City and like have to use a restroom? What's the problem? Somebody tell me. What is it? Is it gross? I just heard they're gross.
Or locked, can't use it out of service.
Okay. Anybody else? Want to talk about New York City restrooms?
They're too far away from me when I find out I need it.
Can't find it when we need it. Anybody else have a New York City restroom story? Oh wait, this is funny. A long time ago when apps first started, I actually created an app with a friend called Hit the Head. And it was about finding my nearest bathroom in a very nice hotel. Anyway, that's nice. Okay, so 𝐋𝐿 actually has founded a luxury bathroom that is movable. And you can find it by an app. And so we just did a little customer discovery. Right? I mean, tell us a little bit about, tell us a little bit about your company. What you're doing.
Yes. So yes, 𝐿ouis has created the world's best portable restroom. It was very interesting in the very beginning because it was actually a frequent problem that my parents and I would run into every time we go somewhere, right? I grew up on a 50-acre farm in Elderson, Pennsylvania, near the Amish actually. And bringing my parents up to New York City or Miami Beach or anywhere really, was always a frequent problem because we jump around in different areas. We sometimes bar hop, do this and that. And one of my parents would have to use the restroom. Well, we're in New York City one day, And my mom had this restaurant, so we went to Starbucks, and they were like, "No, you can't come in here unless you're."
The restaurants are kind of gross.
Yeah, and the restrooms are kind of gross. Then we went to like a boutique, they didn't have one. And then finally I snuck my mom into the Plaza Hotel, down the stairs into the basement. And I was like, wow. You know, in the past, I was, you know, a professional snowboarder for a little bit, and I traveled. And this was like a similar situation that I ran into all around the world. So why is it that, you know, I went down like a research rabbit hole because of my background is in research. But I basically found that in New York City, there are 1,000 public restrooms available throughout all of Manhattan, and serving 8 million residents. And there's an influx of around 65 million tourists per year. And I was thinking, why is the option either a porta potty that people love to have over disrespect, or this multi-million-dollar permanent facility that takes up valuable real estate? So why can't we have something that's mobile, something that kind of fits into a parallel parking space, is self-contained? And it's something that we kind of like, it really has evolved tremendously over time, just by kind of getting feedback from regulatory bodies, the end user, towns, literally everyone.
How many women in here love the porta potty? Wow, what a shocker. I'm so mad. It is not meant for us. We do not want to have any. Anyway, thank you. We're going to hear more from Cutter. Anybody else? All right. Who in here has ever been in a situation where you need to go find a job and you have no clue? Okay, there we go. All right. Say more. Julia, what you don't have a clue. You're looking for a job. Like, say more about that.
The last time I was looking for a job, trying to take your transferable skills and apply them to perhaps an industry that you have not a part of before, but you would be really good for.
And then sometimes you're on Indeed.com and you read something and you go, what the heck does that mean? Does that ever happen?
Of course, yeah.
All right, so a little more customer discovery. Lindsay 𝐋𝐄𝐀𝐑𝐍, tell us about Wingspans and what it is you're up to.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Wingspans, which is, there's so many ways to describe it because we're a two-sided marketplace, but we're trying to create an equitable future of work by bridging education and employers. And we help students and adult learners and job seekers find a job that they love and that provides a living wage. And we help employers find talent and then also meet their DEI initiatives so they can innovate and grow. And I love what you said about the transferable skills, because you just actually validated something we're building called an experience translator. And so we just put in an SBIR proposal for this experience translator to help people, learners and individuals take their very diverse experiences and translate them into different fields.
Great. So the trick here is this is about customer discovery. When you are an entrepreneur and you're starting your business, you have an idea and you love that idea. You fall in love with your idea. And it's not clear that the rest of the world really needs your idea, wants your idea, also will fall in love with your idea. And so you need a mechanism by which you can go out now and try to talk to people. You can't ask them direct questions. That's the tricky part. You can't say, you're going to love this. Like let us promise you are going to love a Louis. You actually need to ask them questions to figure out where their problems are. So that's what customer discovery is all about. And so we're going to start today. We just talked about Lindsay. That's her, by the way, platform. Please go check it out. We watched a video. They're like, who knew? Oh, I know what electrician's apprentice does. I would. There are so many jobs inside of a hospital. You don't know what the title means. Like it's a title. And so
Can I tell you one of my favorite jobs that I
Yep.
never even knew existed? It's called, we have like the world renowned Argonaut on our platform, and I never even knew that was.
Argonaut.
An Argonaut. Does anybody have any idea what that might be? Just like taking twice the word.
Jason and the Argonaut in space.
Yes. Oh, my turn, yes. So what she does is she studies the top of trees. So she's an explorer, like an astronaut, but instead of, space, she studies the top of trees. So she is.
And when you're in school, like, nobody said, oh, by the way, there's a job, it's done at the top of trees. No one says that, right? So
And
that's what Lindsay thinks.
Yeah, so there's a completely different ecosystem up there that wasn't even discovered before she came around. So she basically created that new field.
Exactly. And then, of course, Cutler, very serious Cutler. He looks like he's gonna bite our head off.
Is that Maroon 5?
And he just went to CES, and we know what CES is, the Consumer Electronics. And he actually went into that whole world of, I'm going to actually try out to be on the Shark Tank, the actual Shark Tank. And so you're going to, in the potential slipstream of being on Shark Tank, is that right?
We don't know yet.
We don't know, but he got pretty far, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, the idea here is we have two founders, and many of you are founders, and the question is, how do I make this work? I'll talk a little bit quickly about RIHub. I work with RIHub. We are the Rhode Island Innovation Hub. Please visit us. We're on this floor. It's free. Come on in. And basically, we do everything from mentoring to help you with your pitch. We help you with the commercial side of your business. Lots of people in this room we're working with that we love. Actually, it's a lot of fun for us to do this. But we do everything from pitching and helping to connect you with investors to a customer discovery workshop that we do every couple of months. If you'd like to join our next session, April 2nd, it's free. It lasts about a month. We do it in the evening. It's a couple of workshops, but you do a lot of work and you get a lot of direct feedback from our expert, Matt Lucas, who does a great job of customer discovery. Mass Challenge, also part of us. If you haven't heard of Mass Challenge, it's one of the global excellent accelerators. The applications are open until February 29th. And we will help you if you need help in terms of your application for Mass Challenge. But it is a great opportunity to be in an accelerator. It's all done mostly virtual, although I know Charles did it last year, and there was a little bit of a trip down to Texas, which was cool. And you connect up and tell us, Charles, did you like Mass Challenge? You got to meet a lot of people in the network.
Yeah. Mass Challenge is great in terms of, allowing you outside the world of, say, Rhode Island and getting exposed to larger business. Great platform.
Yeah, which is great. So just a couple of quick, fast things here. All right, so there are no facts inside of the building, so get outside. Anybody ever hear of Steve Blank? So Steve Blank is this dude over here. He owns a house in Rhode Island, which is so random because he actually lives in like Santa Clara, California. And he's kind of like the guru of all things lean startup. Lean startup means, listen, we know that you're not General Motors and you're not McDonald's Corporation. You are a startup. It acts and behaves a lot differently than a big company. And so the techniques you need to use are a lot different than if we were all in a corporation trying to start a new division. Very different work than you will do as a startup founder. So this guy, interestingly enough, he started a movement and he basically says, we see this all the time, RIHub, sitting there at the computer all day. And guess what? The answers aren't there. The answers are with talking to people like you guys about my solution to see if you have that problem. You have that problem, am I solving it? Would you be willing to pay me to solve that problem? And not only would you be willing to pay me once, but would you pay me more than once? Would you keep coming back for more? That's really what Lean is all about. So we'll start off here with what is the one necessary and sufficient condition to build a successful business? And Charles can't answer this because he's been in too many classes with us. Anybody have a guess? What's the one condition? Yes. Find the need is that's a good start. Yeah. What did you just say? Find somebody to buy it. Right on. You need a paying customer, or you're not a business. You can get a lot of people that love you and like are willing to use whatever it is you have for free. But if you want to build a business and actually make money and be able to feed your family, and you really need a paying customer. So you win. That's the right answer. That's the right answer. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about how do I figure out if I got customers. Here's a fact. 97% of all ideas. So by the way, ideas are wonderful. I'd love to talk to people about ideas. There are a dime a dozen, by the way. There's a lot of ideas out there. What's really hard is making that idea into a business that somebody's willing to pay for your service or product. That's really hard. And that's what we're talking about here. That conversion from, oh my God, I've got this passion for this idea, which, you probably all have about 20 of them right now, to how do I take that idea and actually make it into something somebody's willing to pay me for? Hard. That's actually hard. Venture capitalists, those guys, they're women too, but they're professionally there to pick winners. They're professionally there to put money to work so that they get money back more than they put in, right? By hopefully about 10 times. 75% of all of the deals they do don't work out. That's just the nature of the math of being a venture capitalist. It's actually quite a difficult job to actually make choices about winners. So don't feel bad. All of us, me included, have started things that failed. It's actually part of the world of being an entrepreneur. And actually you learn a tremendous amount. That's the key. So learning occupation for sure. The number one reason why startups fail. Anybody see that? Anybody want to guess? What is it? Why do startups mostly fail? What's the number one reason? No market need. So this is speed reader. Okay, so no market need. And by the way, most of us would probably say they ran out of cash or they didn't have enough money or something. But the number one reason is I fell in love with this idea that I had, and it turned out that nobody really wanted to pay me for it. I can't tell you how many times that happens to a lot of us. It happens. It's just the way that goes. So, not the right team. I got out-competed, the price and cost issues, all of this stuff is like, yeah, pivot gone bad, legal challenges, all of that stuff. But the real one is, there wasn't anybody out there that, can I tell you how many people when we see come through RIHub who we love terribly, who just got this idea and they will say, I need $50,000 right now to build this app. And it's going to save the world, and I'm going to, make sure that everybody gets a burrito on their birthday. And I'm not kidding. And you know what? The $50,000, like, it's hard to come by because venture capitalists go, well, show me that people want that, right? And so that's what we're talking about now: is how do I get there? I can show traction that people actually want what I'm doing. So this particular book, Bill Aulet, who's a wonderful professor at MIT, and he's an entrepreneur himself. He's actually alive and well, and he's one of these guys that's around. This Discipline Entrepreneurship is a great book for people, any of you who are looking to maybe do an entrepreneurial venture. The reason why I like it is it's like almost a cookbook. You're going to stack then this, then this, then this. It's very engineering sort of minded. It doesn't kind of talk way up in the sky. It actually gives you real things to do. So there's six themes. The first three of them are about customer. So that tells you something. Who's the customer? What can you do for them? How does the customer acquire? How do they get to your product? What are they using today to solve that problem that isn't your product? Because they're doing something. And then I would contend that, how do you make money? How do you design, et cetera? Also, everything has to do with the customer. So his point is this: who knows what this is? Yes.
Segway.
It's a Segway. Anybody in here ride one of those?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Miami.
In Miami.
10 years
10 years ago in Miami. Was it fun?
Almost died.
Almost died. I have to take really good balance. I don't really want to ride on this. Anybody else have a segue story? Yes.
There was a kid on my college campus, very chilly, and he was known as Segway Kid. Because the only person on the 20,000 person campus.
And it was the segue kid, right? So you kind of,
He was introduced.
yeah, yeah, that's right. And so these were a hot item. And anybody know the person? Anybody remember the person who was the inventor? Yeah. Okay. And so Dean came in that. Dean came in as the inventor, but they sold it to a guy. We're going to get to that story. And that person who loved owning this, backed up to let a person and their dog go by and he perished. But anyway, that's a sad story. Well, we weren't going to bum everybody out. So this guy named Dean came in. Okay, this is Dean. Like, he's much older now. He lives in New Hampshire. Real guy. He invented this. I remember that there was all this like amazing discussion of what's happening out there for this thing is going to change the world. And we had Steve Jobs predicting it's going to become as big as a PC. Bezos said it's one of the most anticipated product introductions of all time. They were going to sell them on Amazon. It was a big, big, big deal. Everybody, and what he did was he didn't let anybody know what it was. It was just this notion of like, oh, wait a minute, this big thing's coming, right? This big thing's coming. So nobody knew what it was. Anybody know what happened to this thing? By the way, that was year 2000. It actually got established and came out year 2001. Right? They predicted, anybody want to guess how many of these, when you looked at his profile, how many of these he thought he was going to sell a year? No. no, but just go in the tens of thousands.
4,000 a month.
No, I'm sorry, a month.
4,000.
4,000. He thought he was going to sell 10,000 a month. 10,000 a month. And then ultimately when he got it up there, it was like 70,000 a year. We think we're going to sell 70,000 of these a year. And I think the original price point was somewhere around $7,000 for one of these, right? So they were going to make a ton of money. Like, this was it. All right. They didn't get a used car. Yeah, exactly. Well, literally they were going to municipalities talking about, we need special sidewalks. We need to change the way traffic goes. They literally in New Hampshire were doing that. Anybody want to guess how much money, you've got Steve Jobs and you've got Bezos calling this the biggest thing ever, how much money that investors poured into this? Millions. $500 million. Okay, anybody else? I'm going to tell you it was closer to about $100 million, which we would love to see you get $100 million for Project Insulin. That would be very cool. So what happened? All right. In 2001, they launched. 90 million at that time was invested. And by 2002, they were about $5,000 per. By 2003, a couple of years later, total, they sold 6,000. They were supposed to sell 10,000 a month, but they sold 6,000 in like, what is that, 2 years? 6,000 total. Then they sold by 2008, so 8 years, 7 years later, they sold a total of 30,000 of them. That's it. That's all that was sold. And by the way, they sold several times. They sold that business several times to several companies. After $100 million of investment, they found that this was not this. All right. So that's the fact. And the fact is $100 million went down the drain. We could have all used that for healthcare.
They call them suppliers.
They helped a lot of suppliers. That's true. Probably some marketers.
They employed some people for a while.
And he did employ some people for a while. He literally, this guy, Dean Hemmings, went and bought a factory in New Hampshire, was setting it up so that it'd be like running 24/7. Literally did all this work.
It's just a good wealth redistribution.
It's a wealth redistribution plan. That's true.
But how much did he pay? It's a sole.
I don't know how much he made. But the point here is you never showed it to people in advance. You never got customers to look at it and use it in advance of selling any of it. He did no customer discovery. He just had such a bold belief in what this was going to be and life changing, and he got his buddies to agree, and they all lined up behind him. And to me, that's $100 million of waste. But great fun. I'm sure they had some good parties.
As I said, it was a lousy investment decision.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it
it does.
kept a lot of people.
Yeah, but again, no customer discussion. Yes.
It has to do a lot with the way it was distributed, because the way it was distributed.
Yeah.
Because in the end of the day, it seemed to me that the companies who bought, they wanted to like rent them out.
Yeah.
Rather than people owning them.
Right.
So people are just using them in particular areas for a
Right.
very short period of time.
Do you think that he could have learned that in advance? That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yes, he said yes. So that's customer discovery, and what we need to do. So talk to customers when we have to do, what do customers have to do with the products we eventually want to buy? So this is a scientist, the inventor in the lab saying, what do customers have to do with it? So here's the essence of what we want to do is we're going to give you techniques tonight to not do this, to not raise $100 million and spend it on something nobody actually buys. So you want to figure out, what do you want to learn? Who do you want to learn it from? How will you get to those people? How can you ensure that you have a good session with them and then make sense of what you learn? So we're going to start with market segmentation. That seems like a big word, but it's actually not too hard. Because you guys probably do it all day, every day, and think about it all day, every day. So what you want to do is you want to figure out who's the first group of people that might buy what you have. Who are those people? And by the way, to do this well, we might come up with 5 or 10 different segments. And what you do is you literally, this is boring because it's like a big chart here, but you really are going to figure out for each of those segments. So anybody here can list, what's a segment? You can think of a market segment. What's a market segment? Like, so women ages 20 to 30. That's a segment. Right? Any other segments? Yes. Gen Z. Perfect. That's a segment. What they do. Gen Z with children. Zero. And that's an easy segment. Yeah, all right. So segments. People that are left-handed is a segment. Religion could be a segment.
Christian women with no children.
So all of these things are segments, and you literally can list them out. It won't take you long. You can do it in the evening and come up with 4, 5, 6, 10 segments that might be very interested in your product. So, Louis, do you have a segment?
Yes. So actually, strangely enough, before I even embarked on Louis, I got really excited up front, and I took my dad around New York City, and we were looking at like the newsstand. Oh, we can make it like this, and it can have all this, and it's gonna be this size. And then I stopped myself because, again, like my background as a scientist, and a lot of times in the lab, you can see a phenomenon, get really excited, and you think you did something really cool, and it turns out it was just an accident. So I didn't want to get ahead of myself. So what I did was I came up with these anonymous surveys, and I actually sent them out. It turns out, I didn't want anybody to know that colors anyway. I don't want them to be nice and agreed. But it turns out that women were actually most excited about Louis. They're like, whenever somewhere there's like, it's super unsafe or unclean, both bodies are disgusting, like I have to make physical contact. A lot of times then I asked my wife, I said, what are the experiences you've had at like Live Nation concerts or like some of the greatest cities you've been to? And she's like, well, I don't drink anything on there. I will actually not use the restroom. I'll wait until I get home. And then the list got even longer. It was like, okay, parents with young children, they never have a baby changing station.
That's a different population.
Yeah.
Right, so now we just heard two separate segments that Cutler needs to go look at and say, before he gets us started, would they be willing to buy? Would they pay, and would they pay again and again and again? So that's perfect. Lindsay, you have a segment, or you have a two-sided market, so one of your markets, what's the segment?
So I guess we'll start on the education side, and I have to say I learned this the hard way. One of our segments is two-year college students. And that's the majority. We're working with about 40 plus two-year colleges throughout the country. But I did get there the hard way. I tried to partner with high schools. I tried to partner with, four-year colleges. And I definitely learned the hard way that two-year colleges was a great place for us. And then and then also more recently, adult learners, which really opened up a whole new world for us. We were finalists in the competition by the U.S. Department of Education, specifically to spur innovation in space for adult learner population. And so so that really just opened up this whole segment. And now I'm really excited about the segment, and it just really, really fell in love with the segment. And we're working with SNAP and TANF in Rhode Island right now to support that population.
So this is not a trick question. How many people work in your company right now?
Just me, actually.
How much time in the day do you have to service a market? How many hours?
24.
All right, 24 hours. So what you can't do is go after 3 or 4 segments at once. You have to pick one, go to your test, and figure that out. Because you just don't have a lot of time. I know Lindsay's got a few more people than herself, but not that many that's going to do this kind of work. So you have to find that beachhead market. Yes. Market segmentation in healthcare is very broad. Women between the ages of 20 and 30 with diabetes. There are so many segments. Yeah. The doctors could be. Absolutely. So your business model, I'm glad you brought this up. The business model tells us how you're going to make money. And in the world of healthcare, it can be complicated. You could be making money because you're getting money from insurance companies, or directly from docs that are paying, or the payer that is a direct payer. But often it's a very complex. Yes. Maybe.
Women who want to answer because they're not blind.
Yeah.
So you have to find the people who want to provide those porta potties
Right.
to their potential customers, clients, population, whatever. It's not, first you have to.
But aren't I using your app and paying $5 to use your facilities?
Well, can I expand upon that?
Yeah, please.
Perfect. Yeah, so actually in the very beginning, so the customer feedback is actually what changed our business model to a leasing model. Because when we were like, okay, can we do pay to use? And I went down to Miami Beach, joined the Chamber of Commerce. I was like, hey, this would be perfect. All you have is porta potties out here next to Miami Beach. Nobody wants to use them. They just go inside the hotel, and then the hotel's complaining and whatever. But ultimately, it turned out that having pay-to-use restrooms in Miami, and I believe Florida as a whole, pay-to-use restrooms are actually not legal.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And so I learned that a lot about a
You're
lot
learning
of
that the hard way.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, I thought that whole transaction.
With limited resources, using other locations that might not be.
Exactly. And so actually, after speaking to various regulatory bodies in different cities, it turned out making something self-contained, because originally the idea was supposed to be tied to the city utilities. And they were like, if you want to tie in the septic, good luck. Because that's going to be like 2 years and $4 million. And you can see that in some of the articles that came out for like San Francisco, like barely being able to break ground. And then I learned even more, speaking to other companies that were kind of similar to what I did. They made like trailer versions of like retail spaces. And they're like, hey, you realize if you operate at events, not only is it more lucrative, it may be more logistically intensive, but you get to operate underneath of their permits that they have. And I was like, yeah. And so I was like, so I put everything on the knot, which is wedding wire, the knot, right? That's like kind of this medium between people who want to host their own weddings and vendors, potential vendors. And it was great because overnight, people were like, how much is it for wedding? $2,700 for a weekend. I'm like, it only takes $500 to get there and $100 for service.
So
And so
how long did it take you to figure all that? So by the way, this is classic entrepreneurial startup stuff. All the answers aren't there. Whatever you thought, probably not right. That's the way it goes. So you better start to feel like it's all right. I'm going to learn something here and change, pivot, as we say.
exactly. I think I'm built like one of those people who's only going to have a good time unless everybody else is having a good time. And so when I can see that the customer's happy, and I can prove to the vendors that people will stay longer, they'll buy more, we'll have people like basically enjoying themselves more event because there's Louis there. And then we can kind of upcharge little like perks here and there. It's like, oh, well, you want to get back to your Taylor Swift concert or your Morgan Wallen concert or whatever. If you pay $25 up front, you can skip the line for general admission. $25 times, 1/10 of a libation concert. It's like
A lot of money. Right. That's great. So again, this is a learning opportunity. Beachhead Market, we talked about it because you need to make sure. Yes.
I was just curious, you said that you can pay an extra, whatever, $25 to skip the line and use the movie. And your aim is to get as many as possible. So what happens when you actually hit saturation and too many people are signing into the auction and now there's 500 people waiting for the movie?
That's actually a great point. One of the things that we're doing is kind of adopting something a lot like Uber, when there's that like rate increase.
Pricing?
Yeah. That's like really the only way to do it. But we also,
That's a good problem to have.
yeah, it is. And kind of like the, we also kind of predict up front, if we know that there's going to be like 10,000 people at an event, we'll make sure that there's enough restrooms there. We definitely wouldn't want to put like 2 there. So,
So
Yeah.
he needs to also figure out who that person is, that persona, as we call it. This one happens to be a guy named Bill, but you probably would have one with a woman on it, and she's at Live Nation, she's got 1.5 children, all of those things that you want to know about. And there's a good reason to lay out those personas. Anybody have an idea of like why you want to lay out a persona? What do you want to know here? Yeah.
I'll tell you everything you need to know about your target customer.
Exactly. Super important. Sounds silly, feels silly sometimes, because you're just making it up in some ways. But I will tell you a number one, now as you start to grow, as he starts to grow, and he has a bunch of folks that are working with him on a team, when they have this hanging on the wall, they know what they're doing every day. They know who they're doing it for. Right? It really crystallizes and focuses people on what they're doing. You can find these people in various places.
I think,
Yeah,
please.
please.
Back to that, the previous slide, you might have hit some of his persona enjoys Mexican food.
Yeah. There we go.
Which leads to the needing a Louis.
There you go. Well, and the person has little kids. So yes, exactly. And that's exactly right. You want to say all these things about that person because you're not really sure, what's going to be important, and you just need to know who that person is. This is a little quick sidebar. If you are going after a corporate customer, these are still humans. These are still people. You still want to do the same thing. It's not the customer lifespan that you're going after, or Hasbro or CVS or any of those big corporations. It's the individual that's the buyer inside of the company that you actually want to think about. So still doable when you're going after a corporate customer. So let's talk about techniques. So this one has the guy talking to his parents, right? So like, that's just not the right technique. But what are you doing? You're learning things you didn't know, you're confirming and correcting, the things that you believe, and you're understanding what's important to them, what's critical to their success, how do you make it work. And here's the thing, and I personally have a problem with this all the time. Like I like to sell, I'm a sales guy at heart, and the problem is I say, you really need one of these, and this would be great, that's going to change your life, etc. So not right when it comes to customer service. You can't do that. Leading the witness, leading the people, that is not what you do. So what you need to do is be able to interview people because you're looking at finding out their pain points. So you need to find their pain points. Like, what is it that's bothering them about this problem? How are they fixing it today? How are they working through it today? Where do you go and you're at a Live Nation concert and you need to go to the restroom? What do you do? This is a little bit of like, hey, by the way, if you ask customers what they want specifically, like before the smartphone, you could not describe the smartphone to somebody and say, you want this? Would you like to have this? Like we wouldn't get it back then. So you really had to go about things in a different way in terms of like solving problems. So this is a good example of what this is like really specific about what you want to do. You've got something that you want to ask, lay out assumptions. So these assumptions are from somebody who is building a new pet service that would actually go to your home, as opposed to you needing to go to the vet. They would come to you, and so you just lay out assumptions. Hey, we think that there's like a busy person that is going to be one of our early adopters. We think that, people discover their vets through using word of mouth or online searches. I don't know, but I'm assuming, I'm just making those assumptions. I'm laying this out and saying, they're willing to pay a big premium to have the vet show up at their door. I have no idea. We can recruit enough vets across the country to make this a big enough business. With travel baked in, our vets can see enough people. We can affordably acquire a customer. So literally lay out, just make them up, the assumptions you have about the customers you're going to get, because those assumptions are going to guide you to make better questions. And so you won't go right at it. And so basically you want to do with this interview, you want to warm them up, tell them who you are, and ask basic questions about them. And if you can capture this, capture it. You'll want to know later on much more about those people. So you might say some open-ended questions. Who's your vet? Tell me about, how you found that person. How did you find that vet? Tell me about the process of scheduling time with a vet. That sounds almost like an annoying question, but it's actually going to lead to potential places where there's problems that show up for them. So you want to describe the last time you had to take the pet for a checkup. Was it frustrating? What was frustrating? No, you can't say was it frustrating. You say, what was frustrating? They might say nothing. Okay. What did you like about the experience? Let them tell you. Have you ever thought about changing vets? That's when you start to dig out, like, well, we had this problem, with my whole fluffy and, et cetera, learn about their problems. That's what you're doing here. You're trying to figure out what their problems are. And you can't ask that question direct because it won't work. I've done this wrong. So you really have to get good at asking these little side questions to find out, tease out if they have those problems. You're going to learn problems that you never thought of. That's the cool thing. When you do this, you're going to learn about things you had never thought of, and that's really great. So good questions about their process. Ask why. Ask what and how. Don't ask for their opinions. Don't talk about your technology. Hey, I got this really cool thing. It's got a couple of errors on it. Don't talk about that. Nobody cares. Or leading questions, as I said. So, question formulation, keep in mind what you learn, phrasing. What role does cost play in your decision making is a very good question. Hey, is lower cost important to you? Guess how many people say yes? All of them, exactly, every one of them. So don't ask that question because it's never going to work. So, okay, methods. In person, number one, in person, if you can do it. During the pandemic, of course, we had to do Zoom. But what you don't want to do is get on the phone and talk live because you don't know they might be sitting there with a martini and you can't really see what's going on. But human beings, we learn so much by looking at people, seeing their reaction, and there's a whole lot of information there. So doing it in person is the key. I recognize that probably 90% of us in this room are uncomfortable. Like when we have to ask people, like, I'm going to bother you and ask you some questions. If you're in love with your idea and your company, you'll do it. Because that's the only way to get to truth. It's the only way to get to truth. And it's, you know, you had to go and talk to people in person, right? You talk to people in person every day, right? So that's how that works. All right. Email. No. Any ideas about texting the questions? That's definitely not. So, and I know that most of us in here love to text, and it's really quick, and we figure we can get a lot there. So always prepared, gather the background data, document your interview plan. When you document that plan, when you're sitting down with them, so much more comfortable than if you didn't document it. So it's really a thing you want to do. How can it go wrong? I've done this before where I'm like, okay, I got the answers I wanted and I moved ahead as opposed to doing enough. What's enough? Mr. Steve Blank would tell you around 50 people that you talk to. There are numbers that he would say. I'm a person like probably pretty normal where it's like, oh, I heard 4 people say this. This must be true. And reality says, no, you need to actually ask more. You can talk a lot of not relevant topics, etc. So you don't want to sell, you don't want to talk about your technology, and you don't want to ask what they want because they're going to tell you all kinds of things, and it's not really going to get you the answer that you need. So those are all super important. So there are, so by the way, customer discovery, if you want to do it, we have a much deeper class at RIHub. It happens at night. It also happens on Zoom. I named Matt Lucas, who said he actually teaches iCore out of MIT as well. He's an expert at customer discovery. No cost to you. So if you are interested in doing more customer discovery, I urge you to take that. So the art of being a great entrepreneur is finding the right balance between vision and reality. Anything left for you guys to talk about in 3 minutes? Anybody have any questions for us? Yes.
As far as, I mean, it's all great when you have the right aspect. How do you determine who's the right person beyond looking at the persona? How do you screen them?
So here we go. I went through this really quickly, like I didn't really touch it. But so I love LinkedIn. I also love conferences. And the reason why is you can find a lot of people of similar types at conferences. And you don't even sometimes have to pay for the conference. You can walk in and just kind of hang out. And I've done that before. Where he's like, I don't have $2,500 for this, but I'm going to go hang out in the lobby and drink their coffee and chat with people in a suit. So they don't look like I'm like, what are you doing here? But seriously, like places like that. Yes, Beth.
So, I mean, obviously you want to have people confirm and give you the information you want, but don't you also kind of want to identify the you have a few outliers just to kind of.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely can do that. Like, in other words, saying like, I know this is my, the persona I'm looking for, this is the segment, but let me just test a little bit. What I don't want you to do is go run too far and try to test 2 segments at once. Because that's really too hard and you get confused, but yeah.
It will raise more questions.
Yeah, you can test the outliers for sure. Yeah. So I love LinkedIn. I love conferences. I love how do you find these people? I don't know. How do you guys find people that you talk to?
I definitely use LinkedIn. And honestly, probably all social media. I do a little bit of, I found a little hack. This was a long time ago, actually. I was looking for a job in the Division of Plastic Surgery at Penn Medicine with the Drexel University. And I kept showing up to a lot of doctors' offices with my resume. I would show them, say, hey, can you tell Dr. Fisher I dropped in? I really want to do research for you. Never worked. Anyway, I ended up randomly running into somebody who happened to work in divisional plastic surgery, and they recommended me having that. I was like, wow, that's interesting. And that opened up a whole new world, actually, of applications and really cool opportunities that came after that. I was like, what did I really learn there? Was it that I just like would try to just, throw spaghetti at the wall and hope it kind of sticks? Or is it that I strategically kind of make my way in there by getting to know people? And I think that's like a big part of it. Like definitely putting yourself out there, but also at the same time, be like, hey, do you want to actually sit down and get coffee and chat about this potential opportunity rather than me just chat GPTing an email and sending it? So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I've learned.
It's so much easier to sit behind a computer.
Yeah.
Lindsay.
And the only thing that I would add is I do a lot of my customer discovery, talking to potential customers every day. And sometimes I forget that actually you always need to do that customer discovery, even if it's a potential customer and maybe it's a sales conversation, but it always comes down to also being a customer discovery conversation. And so that's when I do a lot of my customer discovery. And I was just having, I think actually Annette sat in on one of my meetings, and I jumped right to the product. I jumped right to what we have to offer them. And even in a sales meeting, it's always better to start the conversation. It's always, and I always forget this, but always start the conversation with that customer discovery, so you can then tailor your next conversation on demoing your product or demoing whatever you're going to show them to whatever they said. So that's just something I forget. That's very
Asking them questions first.
right.
Make sure you're dialed in. This is a great example of how when sales works well. You don't come in and just start talking about how great your product is. That isn't the way to do it at all. You actually have to do the opposite. You have to ask the questions first and then dial in. Oh, like, how many people have to make this decision in your company, or who makes this decision? And by the way, I will tell you, it's uncomfortable for us. This isn't like a simple thing to just start doing. Some people are wired that way. We all know them. We have them in our family or whatever. Most of us are not. We're not wired to just start asking nosy questions. My mother would have said, it's not your business. So, I had to rewire myself like, no, this actually is my business. And I'm doing it nicely and gently, not to harm people. So, yeah, it's tricky. Yes.
It's so difficult to ask questions without any prejudice.
That's right.
Because we know where we want to get.
Yes, I'm with you. Like, that is the hardest part, is not to say, they're gonna love this. Like, they're like, I lead up with the questions, and I'm like, well, what if you had a purple whatever? Wouldn't that be cool? Like, you can't do that. Yes.
It's kind of a specific question, but let's say you find someone you want to ask questions to. How, and you don't want to lead them with, here is my product,
Right.
my company, and be really excited
How
about
cool
it.
is this?
How do you convince them to answer questions just kind of randomly if they don't know what they're answering for?
That's a great question. And, I think most people are willing to give you 5 minutes. Like, you never want to, like, I usually tell people, look, if the first 5 minutes isn't for you, I'll never talk to you again. I don't call you again, etc. I give them a bargain, like, I just need to find this out. Most people are willing to give you that. Once you start getting over that, then they get a little tricky. But I agree with you, it's not that easy to do if there's nothing in it for them. What's the value for them? You're just probing and trying to find out answers. So most people are pretty good about saying, look, I have 5 minutes for you. And then let's see where we go with that. Yeah. Yes.
When I would do, people love to talk about themselves, giving them
Yes, they do.
space to listen, and they'll obviously ask you what you need from me, once you make them appreciated and esteemed,
Yes.
we could build up confidence.
I love that. People love to talk about themselves and their problems, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it's like, this is what we know, right? Our experience, yes.
I like the observation that I think, not everybody, but I think majority of people
Yes. Yes.
and saying that, I'm working on a project and I really
Yes.
like to ask you some questions if you don't mind.
Yes, I'm working on a project that's great. Those of you that are, many of you in here look like you're of student age, oh my gosh, you got the door open. I'm getting my master's degree, and I have a couple of questions, and you join up in the app, people love that. It's a great way to work. Anybody else? All right, well, I think we are done for this evening. I would love you to give thanks to these two people who are taking over. And if you're looking for a job, go see Wingspan's. If you're looking for relief, go see Louis. And I very much enjoyed seeing all of you tonight, and I thank you for being with us.
I see.
Thanks, everyone. I was thinking, when Annette made the comment about don't go everywhere, to start, you have to establish yourself. I'll tell you a little, story. I had a client, I'm a lawyer. I had a client, it's almost 20 years ago. They had an electric, scooter. And over the course of I took them public on the AIM in London, which is sort of it's not even a NASDAQ, but it's sort of quick and very entrepreneurial. And between the private money they raised before that and the AIM proceeds, over about an 18-month period, they raised $156 million. Sounded pretty cool. I spoke to the CEO the day after we closed the public offering, and he said, I don't think we have enough money.
Oh my God.
And they didn't. And the reason they didn't is that rather than identify handful of likely markets where people were already riding, gas scooters, or there were already initiatives like London where you couldn't bring a non-electric vehicle into the inner city, where there were incentives. They said they thought they had to go worldwide.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was a good idea. And not surprisingly, they ultimately wound up bankrupt. So targeting and building is really important, and knowing where you need to focus is critical for success. That's just a little anecdote. I want to thank you all for being here and for coming to the workshop. We have recorded this, and it will be on a link that Beth, our executive director, will send out in the next few days. We have a new event this year. It's new to us. We are having a student pitch contest. It's open to college students in all colleges in the state. It'll be held on the Bryant University campus in Smithfield, Rhode Island, on Wednesday, February 28th at 5:30 in the evening. And there is limited seating, so we encourage you to register on our website, which is ri-business.com. So if you're interested in doing that, I always think these are great. They're great experience. You don't have to win. It's just getting up and trying to speak and sell people in 90 seconds usually. It's a great exercise. Our next event here at Venture Cafe is one of our more popular ones. It's Find Those Funds. How do you find the money? We'll have 3 panelists that will give advice and tips on how do you, what your options are, how do you find possible funding sources. So it's always a big, a popular event. It will be here on Thursday, March 28th at 5:30, and we hope you can join us then. So a reminder about the competition. Application process is open now, and it will close on Monday, March 25th at 5 p.m. sharp. And we do shut it down, and we sometimes get people whine about how they just missed the deadline, but plenty of advance notice, 5 p.m. March 25th. And we encourage everyone, and I think anybody who's been in the competition would say that the process in and of itself is valuable, right? Win or not. So thank you again, and have a good evening.
Just
quick reminder, at 7 o'clock, we do have office hours, to WDE the certification. So if you want to find Caroline, 7 o'clock in the competition is an opportunity as well. Otherwise, thank you, Rhode Island Business Competition, and that's last much for the next one.
Hi there. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Hi.